Hey everybody, so I want to talk for a minute about this bed right here. This was an experiment. Sometime in November I planted garlic in here, 4 different varieties. I wanted to try them out, and then I heard about an interplanting experiment where another farmer put Austrian winter peas interplanted with his garlic to add fertility and ground cover. And so I wanted to try that, so in February I planted the Austrian winter peas in here. I did not find out how dense he planted them, when he harvested them, or any of the specifics about it. And that wasn't real smart. So as far as benefiting the garlic, which was the point of the experiment, that didn't work too well. But it wasn't total loss. Every time you do an experiment, maybe you don't get the results you wanted. This time it was my fault that I didn't. But I did get some good results, and I'll talk about that. So this is the bed right here. It's a 30-inch bed, just like the rest of mine, and you can't tell it because of all of the cover crop on it. And basically what happened is I planted the Austrian winter peas way too thick, and it choked out a lot of the garlic, as you can see. So even though the experiment didn't work because I basically smothered out all of my main crop, which was the garlic, I was really impressed with how much biomass came out of this one bed. And I just want to show you right quick how much and insane. Think about a tray of microgreens that just, you let it go super high and then it just laid over. That's basically what I think about this bed. It's just a huge microgreens tray with the Austrian winter peas. So check this out. See where the aisle used to be, the pathway used to be right here. Look at this. That's all Austrian winter peas. That's the edge of the bed right there. That's the Austrian winter peas. Pretty awesome. So what I wound up doing with all this, I played around with a couple of different things to figure out how to use all of the biomass. And for this bed, I'm basically going to incorporate a permaculture technique, something you might see in a food forest or whatever, called chop and drop. Basically you take the live plant, cut it out, chop it up, and put it right back in place. So let me show you right quick how I did this on some of the ones I've already did. Just came through, cut it off at the roots. I'm not ripping it out because I want the roots down in here. So I'm just cutting the plants off. I still have garlic that survived in here, so I'm going to try not to cut it down. So far done pretty good, but I have cut down a few of them. Just like that. Oops. Anyway, that's a little section cut out. I have all of this. And I've just got a knife here, nothing fancy. Played around with this yesterday and figured out cutting it about like I'm doing here, just like cutting up greens or something, was the best ticket. And then I can mulch right in between the little rows of garlic which are running across the bed like this. So take it, there's some garlic, and I'm just putting it in between. So now I have a mulch that's going to cover the ground, and it's going to slowly break down. And by doing that, it's going to keep moisture in, and it's going to feed the microbial life, which is the big thing for me. And when it's finally broke down, it's going to add fertility back in the bed, which is the ultimate goal. Now the interesting thing, because I planted them too thick, is I believe the amount of biomass that I got out of this one bed is actually enough to cover 2 beds. And so at the end of the day, I think I'm going to use what basically failed as an interplanting and use that as a cover crop strategy, where I'm going to plant for every one bed, 30-inch bed that I plant of cover crop, I want to be able to mulch, chop and drop 2 30-inch beds. finished project. Got a big heavy thick layer of mulch on there, and I thought I was going to lose most of my garlic. You can't really see it in the video probably, but there's a lot of it still there, and you got to keep in mind that we pulled a lot of it out and ate it immature, kind of like a leek. So we had robbed from this patch pretty heavily, but pretty pleased with that. It looks messy here, but in a few days that'll start breaking down, and I think the garlic will come back on up when this warm weather starts hitting us. Still may get a decent crop out of this bed as far as garlic goes. All right, you seen what I did over here and seen how it turned out. You got to keep in mind this whole thing is my test market garden, so this is my experiment station. I'm playing around. If I was doing this for money, I probably wouldn't have as much freedom to do stuff like this. It could potentially fail, or I would have at least had to do my homework and figured it out before I planted it like that. So didn't do real well on the garlic, but like I said, I see this as a win still, because I've experimented with cover crops a little bit in the past. Buckwheat's one that I remembered, and I was impressed with the amount of biomass that I got from the buckwheat. But this is really impressive. There's a lot of it, and I'm starting to realize my situation with farming here in the south, doing the no-till thing where it's compost intensive. I don't really have access to huge amounts of good compost, so I'm starting to think that when I do set up shop, I'm not going to be able to rely solely on compost, and that I'm going to have to incorporate other techniques such as cover cropping to get in fertility and still stick to my no-dig methods that I want to try. So yeah, super impressed with it as a cover crop. What I would probably do in the past is plant one bed of cover crop of this to have enough chop and drop for 2 beds. So for example, say that end bed where that cover crop was, I would have had it solely in cover crop over the winter, keeping the beds covered, keeping them weed free, and just keeping them active, and then maybe had this bed next to it and some type of overwinter crop that would come out in the spring. And so when this crop came out, the overwintered one, I would cut that out, clean the bed up, and then chop and drop the bed next to it and be able to cover both beds with it. And it wouldn't work for something like this with the baby greens, I know that, because you'd have a really thick layer of mulch there that would hopefully break down pretty quick, but still you couldn't plant into this with the Jang cedar like that. However, if I had something, a longer lasting crop, an upright crop such as okra, tomatoes, squash, I think it would be excellent just to have that mulch cover and plant seeds or plant straight into that, because you don't have so many plants per 30-inch bed, and it would be doable. So that's what I came up with. I think it's a win, even though I sort of failed. So all in all, the interplanting experiment basically turned into a cover crop experiment. Everything else is looking okay, not perfect. Still got the bed over there. Yeah, I hope y'all found that useful, and I appreciate y'all watching. Y'all be good. Bye.